Good evening. Sir Keir Starmer is a dead man walking.
The leader of the Labour Party.
Another Conservative.
Jeremy Corbyn.
Jeremy Corbyn.
Jeremy Corbyn.
Jeremy Corbyn, of course. Anyone but Jeremy Corbyn.
I think it would probably be me.
His answer to the question, who will be Prime Minister?
Imagine waking up one morning, turning on the telly, and hearing a broadcaster declare that the Prime Minister is a dead man walking. Not metaphorically, not as a cheeky bit of hyperbole, but as a full-throated, no-holds-barred assessment of where things stand. That's exactly what happened on GB News when Patrick Christys absolutely tore into Keir Starmer over the latest Downing Street meltdown. We're talking secret meetings of Labour MPs plotting his removal, claims of cabinet ministers launching coups, and a chief of staff who may or may not have started a civil war inside Number 10. It's chaos, it's brutal, and frankly, it's absolutely spectacular political theater. Welcome to UK Political Insight, where today we're breaking down why Patrick Christys thinks Keir Starmer is finished. Before you continue, please don't forget to hit the subscribe button for more updates on this channel. Thank you. What's really going on with the alleged leadership plots, and whether Britain's Prime Minister can survive what might be the shortest honeymoon period in modern political history. Let's get into it. Right, so let's start with Patrick Christys' absolutely brutal rant on GB News because it sets the tone for everything that's happening. He opened his show by declaring that Sir Keir Starmer is a dead man walking. Not struggling, not under pressure, but finished, dead man walking. Those are the words you use when someone's political fate is sealed and they're just waiting for the guillotine to drop. And then he laid out exactly why he thinks that. Last week, newly elected Labour MPs met in secret to discuss how they could get rid of the Prime Minister. Secret meetings, 6 months into a massive majority. That's not normal. That's not just Westminster gossip. That's a genuine crisis. But it gets better, or worse, depending on your perspective. Patrick went on to say that Downing Street believed the Health Secretary Wes Streeting was launching a coup. Not just grumbling, not just positioning himself for the future, but actively launching a coup. And he wasn't alone, apparently. Shabana Mahmood, Ed Miliband, and Angela Rayner were also believed to want Starmer out. That's the Lord Chancellor, the Energy Secretary, and the Deputy Prime Minister, respectively. If true, that's not a handful of backbench rebels. That's the cabinet turning on the Prime Minister. That's Game of Thrones level betrayal happening in real time in Downing Street. Patrick then dropped another bombshell. Apparently, Wes Streeting had 50 front-bench Labour MPs willing to resign if or when Rachel Reeves's disaster budget goes badly in a couple of weeks' time. 50 MPs. That's not a rebellion, that's a coordinated strike force ready to bring down the government from within. Now, Streeting has strongly denied all of this, calling it nonsense. But the very fact that these rumors exist and are being taken seriously tells you everything about how unstable things are inside the Labour Party right now. And here's where it gets really delicious. Patrick played an old clip of Wes Streeting being asked who would be the next leader of the UK. And Streeting responded, "It'll probably be me." Now that clip's from years ago, and Streeting was probably joking, or at least being hypothetical. But in the current context, with all these coup allegations swirling around, it looks absolutely damning. Patrick's point was clear. Streeting's always been hiding in plain sight. He's always positioned himself as a future leader, and now the knives are out, he's in prime position to strike. Wes Streeting, for his part, has been doing the rounds trying to shut this down. He gave a BBC interview where he said he could not see any circumstances under which he would challenge the Prime Minister. He joked about the briefings against him being the worst attack on a faithful since Joe Marlowe was banished in the Traitors final, suggesting someone in Downing Street has been watching too much Celebrity Traitors and should swap to Countryfile instead. It's a decent bit of media handling, using humor to deflect, but the problem is the jokes don't actually answer the underlying question. Is there a genuine plot or not? Streeting insisted he's not challenging the Prime Minister, and he's not doing any of the things some silly briefer said overnight. But then, and this is significant, he defended Morgan McSweeney, Starmer's chief of staff, who's at the center of this whole mess. At an NHS providers conference, Streeting said there wouldn't be a Labour government without Morgan McSweeney. That's important because Starmer himself conspicuously failed to give McSweeney a ringing endorsement during Prime Minister's questions. When you've got the Health Secretary defending your Chief of Staff more strongly than you are yourself, that's a problem. So, who is Morgan McSweeney, and why is he suddenly the most controversial person in Westminster? McSweeney is Starmer's Chief of Staff, his most trusted political advisor, the architect of Labour's election victory. He's a behind-the-scenes operator, not a public figure, but he's incredibly powerful inside Number 10. And according to reports, he's the one who authorized or at least orchestrated a briefing war against Wes Streeting and potentially other cabinet ministers. The idea was apparently to preempt any leadership challenge by painting potential rivals as disloyal and nipping plots in the bud. The problem, it spectacularly backfired. Instead of preventing a leadership challenge, the briefings made one seem more likely. They forced Labour MPs to start thinking seriously about whether Starmer is a viable long-term leader. They created exactly the instability they were supposed to prevent. And now McSweeney's facing calls to be sacked, Streeting's having to deny coup plots, and Starmer's authority has taken a massive hit. It's a masterclass in how not to do internal party management. During PMQ, Starmer was asked directly about his confidence in Morgan McSweeney, and his answer was telling. He said, "Morgan McSweeney, my team and I are absolutely focused on delivering for the country." That's not a ringing endorsement. That's a politician desperately trying to change the subject. But then he added something significant. Let me be clear, of course, I have never authorized attacks on cabinet members. I appointed them to their posts because they are the best people to carry out their jobs. Read between the lines there. He's saying he didn't authorize the attacks, which implies someone did. And if he didn't authorize them, but his chief of staff did, that's a massive problem. It suggests McSweeney went rogue, or at minimum, that there's daylight between the PM and his most senior advisor. After PMQs, Downing Street tried to clean things up. When asked if Starmer had confidence in McSweeney, a spokesperson said, "Yes, as expressed in the House." But that's weak sauce. As expressed in the House means the half-hearted comment Starmer made where he conspicuously didn't actually back McSweeney properly. If the Prime Minister genuinely had full confidence in his Chief of Staff, the answer would be a simple, emphatic yes, full confidence, moving on. The fact that they're parsing words and referring back to ambiguous statements tells you McSweeney's position is anything but secure. So let's zoom out and look at the bigger picture, because this isn't just about internal Labour drama. This is about a government that's 6 months into a massive majority and already eating itself alive. Patrick Christys calling Starmer a dead man walking isn't just provocative broadcasting. It's based on observable reality. Labour MPs are meeting in secret to discuss replacing their leader. Cabinet ministers are suspected of plotting coups. The Chief of Staff is under fire for botched internal operations. The budget's already being called a disaster before it's even been delivered. The polls have collapsed. Starmer and Reeves are the most unpopular PM and Chancellor on record. That's not hyperbole. That's actual polling data. 6 months in, and they're historically unpopular. That's the context in which these coup plots and leadership challenges are happening. Morgan McSweeney's position is fascinating because he's simultaneously indispensable and increasingly toxic. He masterminded Labour's election victory. He's the strategist who turned the party from Corbyn-era disaster into government. Starmer owes him everything. But if McSweeney is now creating more problems than he's solving, if his briefings are destabilizing the government rather than protecting it, then at some point Starmer's going to have to make a choice. Does he stick with his loyal chief of staff and risk further damage? Or does he throw McSweeney under the bus to try to reset and restore cabinet unity? The fact that Starmer didn't give McSweeney a proper endorsement during PMQs suggests he's at least considering the latter option. Politicians don't hedge like that unless they're keeping their options open. If Starmer genuinely believed McSweeney was essential and blameless, he'd have said so clearly. The ambiguity suggests he's weighing whether McSweeney's become a liability.